Hello, Nerdventurers. I guess that's my name. I'm not sure what my community's name would be. I don't have anything catchy for it right now, but comic book lovers everywhere, welcome back. Another nerd venture we are about to embark upon together. Apologies if I am coughing a lot or sound different. I'll try to edit it out as much as I can, but if you follow me on Facebook, which I would encourage you to, you might have seen that I posted about having pneumonia this last week. So I am just now getting over this bout of pneumonia, feeling on the mend, not so bad. And I'm going to start doing videos again. So sorry that I missed one last week. It just would have been a total shit show. I couldn't have even talked to you very well. So, now that we're feeling good, the one thing that was awesome about the having pneumonia, not that there's anything really awesome about it, was that I had a lot of time to read books. I was off of work for a while, and I just had a lot of uninterrupted time to chill out and read. And one of the things that I read during this time period was the Devil Dinosaur Omnibus, and I wanted to talk about it today, give you sort of like a quick overview and review. It's hard to sort of review this book because, you know, it is what it is, and if you like Jack Kirby, you'll probably like it, and if you don't like Jack Kirby, you probably won't. It's a pretty clear-cut line, I'd say, for a lot of Jack Kirby stuff, but I think it's an interesting book to talk about nonetheless, so let's jump right into Devil Dinosaur Omnibus, one of the earliest omnibus printings from Marvel. So, like I said, this book is kind of fascinating because it's the end of one era and the beginning of another, sort of. Let me explain what I mean. The beginning I'm talking about is the Marvel Omnibus line. This book was printed in 2007, which was the year that Marvel began putting out these omnibus, I'm almost positive. And it collects only 9 issues and is only $30, as you can see up in the top here. Around this time, Marvel was putting out things, and they would do this kind of thing where they had the front cover on it, and then they would change the top printing from 35 cents or whatever to $30. They did this with the Eternals Omnibus as well. It says at the top, still only $75. So it's funny now because a $30 omnibus is just unheard of at this point. I mean, the prices have gone up a bunch, and even though it's only 9 issues, if this was released today, I would imagine they would charge like $50 for it or something like that, because I checked my bookshelf, and the lowest price I could find on an omnibus was $50 that was released in the last couple of years. So this is also unique because I think it's one of the only books that has the Marvel Omnibus logo sideways like this. Almost all of them, even the thinner ones, like I was checking it against my Young Avengers Omnibus and stuff, even the thinner ones have it printed horizontally instead of this vertical print. So, interesting. On the side, you have the Devil Dinosaur Jack Kirby. On the back, that classic style of the older Marvel Omni where they would do this. The cover layouts. Back then, it was unusual to have like the different designs that we have now, which are more sort of tailored to the specific book. This was kind of like a general, black with the covers on it. And like I said, Devil Dinosaur 1 through 9, $30. So pretty good price, depending on if you like Jack Kirby, that is. And the dust jacket is just the first issue. Pretty common sort of thing to do. If we take off the dust jacket, you can see that it is in the older style of Marvel Omnibus. The newer ones sort of have like a smooth, I would say like matte finish on it. And these ones kind of have like a slightly embossed faux leather finish, these earlier ones. But the thing that kind of does stink about the fact that it's an early one is it's actually not a sewn binding, which is almost unheard of for Marvel Omni. But if you look at it right there, you can tell that it is actually glued. The pages go straight in. There's no signatures, I believe they're called, where the pages are bundled and stuff. It just is a straight glued binding. And so even though this is a smaller book, you can see it really doesn't lay open at all. And Marvel Omni are known and really well, I don't know if respected is the right word, but really well thought of because of their nice binding and the fact that you can lay them open anywhere and they will stay, but not this one. So this is an earlier one, like I said, and it shows in the production quality. It's just not quite there yet. But what about the book itself? this is when I get to that end of an era part. So simultaneously, this book shows us the beginning of the Marvel Omnibus sort of production, and it also gives an interesting insight into the end of Jack Kirby's time with Marvel. This was actually the last property that Kirby created for Marvel, and he wrote and drew it all, edited and everything like that, in 1978, from, I believe, April through December. There were only 9 issues released. Here's the table of contents, and yeah, number 1 was in April, number 9 was in December of 1978, and that was it. It was only 9 issues, and then it was done. At this time, this was the time when Kirby had returned to Marvel, after booming in the Silver Age from 62 up until 1970, drawing Fantastic Four, Hulk, basically everything. I mean, almost every property Kirby had his hands on at some point. From there, he left to go to DC Comics in 1970, around the early 70s, because he was told that he was going to get more creative license and more freedoms to do whatever he wanted and have better work conditions and blah 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 blah. Jack Kirby's life is one of debate amongst comic book fans, depending on which side, if you're sort of like siding with him being, downtrodden by the companies, or if you're siding with Stan Lee and sort of the different creative, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But after working at DC for a number of years, putting out the Commandy books, he did OMAC, The Demon, as well as his whole Fourth World thing with the New Gods and Darkseid and everything. So after doing all that for DC, he came back to Marvel in the late 70s, worked on a number of books. The Eternals, he did a 2001 Space Odyssey adaptation. He did this book, and then also Machine Man and a couple, Captain America. But I would love to get a 2001 omnibus. That's the one thing that that's like my holy grail of Jack Kirby Omni things, but it's never going to happen because Marvel doesn't own the rights, obviously, because it's 2001. I think it's Universal. That's what's coming to my head. But either way, my goal eventually is to get all of Jack Kirby's work in the most kind of premium format that it's been printed in. So towards that goal, I did pick up Devil Dinosaur. I ended up paying about $50 for this, I believe, and that was on a Facebook swap group. But you could get it online probably for like around 70 to 80 is what I usually see it go for. It would be like a pretty fair deal. If you can get it, at 50 and under, I would say that's a pretty, good thing to grab. If you like Jack Kirby, because part of Kirby coming back to Marvel in the late 70s was that Marvel found his books not to be as popular with readers as they were 10 years ago. In 1968-69, you had guys like Jim Steranko, as well as Neil Adams, sort of pushing the Jack Kirby formula out a little bit more. And when Jack Kirby was still doing the Jack Kirby thing, from 1970 to 1978, it felt dated and a little archaic to a lot of readers in the late 70s, which I understand. If you look at this book, it is very, very Kirby-esque in its design. It's almost universally, it'll start out with this page, a 2-page splash. Almost every issue, I think towards the end it doesn't have those, but almost every issue follows the same formula of a 2-page splash being the second. There's some awesome ones in here, don't get me wrong. I'm not disparaging this formula, I'm just pointing out that it's how Jack Kirby worked. So after the 2-page splash, we would then continue the story, and the story was either done in 6 panels, panels of 6, as Kirby often did, dividing it up into a 6-piece grid and sometimes having a 2-piece grid there, or it would be the 4 panels for a little bit more size. And as you can see as I'm flipping through this, it does not deviate from that formula. It is a Kirby book through and through. Always you see, like I said, big page, double page splash, 6-panel layouts, 4-panel layouts, just using a double for that, 6-panel layout, 6-panel layout, 6-panel layout. You get the idea. And so if you are not somebody who's into Jack Kirby's art or sort of appreciate the way that he works things, the sort of economical and powerful style that he gets out of these layouts, this book is not going to be for you. I happen to love his stuff. Like, I can't get enough of Kirby. And even for me, this book borders on being not worth it. Simply because it was a later time period. I don't think he draws dinosaurs and cavemen in that interesting of a way. However, as you've probably seen when I was flipping through this, there are a number of space people and alien invasions and stuff in this, which is very cool. Like that. I mean, I love this. I cannot get enough of this kind of Jack Kirby storytelling. It's so awesome and powerful. One thing to mention is that during this time period, he was being inked by Mike Royer. And one thing, if you are a fan of, you can see up here, Jack Kirby, edited, written, and drawn by, and inked by Mike Royer. If you are a fan of Jack Kirby and you're sort of in on the discussion of Jack Kirby, you know that a lot of people spend time talking about who their favorite Kirby inker is. It's actually a big discussion because Kirby's stuff looks pretty different depending on the time period of what you're looking at. I mean, you can still always tell it's Jack Kirby, but it does look different depending on the inker, obviously. So Mike Royer does this entire 9 issues. His stuff is a lot bolder. Like, his lines are a lot fatter and thicker than some of the other people that have worked with him, especially like if you look at the Devil Dino himself. He has like a lot of very thick lines that sort of outline him. And it's not really that, like this kind of style with these very, very thick lines. It's okay. It's not my favorite Kirby. I really like when Kirby was being inked by, I don't know how you say his last name, but Joe Sinnott, or Sinnott, back in the 60s. Also, Alfredo Akala did a lot of inking for him at different points in time. But this particular arc is all done by Mike Royer. So if you were into this more powerful, thicker lined, like, I mean, look at some of the lines in that are like super, super thick. If you're into that style and you are a fan of like King Kong or Godzilla or something like that, this could, I think, really scratch an itch for you. But you just have to realize that it is Jack Kirby through and through. The writing is not as on the nose as some of the 60s stuff. Like, if you look at some writing from that time, especially the late 60s, a lot of times they would spend the entire panel describing what was going on in the panel. And Jack Kirby doesn't do that all that much. He's not guilty of sort of like using words to re-describe the same thing. But it is not as maybe nuanced or tight as writing had become by the time the late 70s. It still is very, very economical writing. You know, like Jack Kirby does. He was pumping out dozens of issues, like maybe per week. He would do multiple pages. I mean, not issues. He was pumping out dozens of pages, of penciled pages, and at a time, and he would just draw these things super quick. And so he didn't have a lot of time, I think, to sort of polish up the dialogue and all that stuff. So he would kind of just use what was economical and straight to the point. So there's not a lot of nuance or character building or anything in this. I mean, the main character is this Devil Dinosaur who apparently, when he was younger, got burned, and that turned him red. And so now he's, like, always has the rage of fire in him. There you go. You can see him right there, getting burned. So, and he's followed around by his partner in crime, Moon Boy. Who's this little guy who basically hops around on his back and just sort of tells him what to do. It's a very goofy, more kind of child, I would say, or like young reader-driven comic book. But I still found a good bit of fun and enjoyment reading it through, just because I love Jack Kirby so much. But if you are going to get into this, I would say just know what you're getting into. You know that it's going to be similarly composed throughout the entire thing. But if Jack Kirby's your thing, then I think you'll dig it. So yeah, not that much more to say about Devil Dinosaur. It ends pretty abruptly. 9 issues in, it just sort of, they come to the end of the story, and then it's like, thus endeth the chronicle. And that's it. So this is just an interesting, I think, artifact almost from both late Marvel Kirby and from early Marvel Omnibus stuff. It's just a really cool way to see what they were collecting at the time, and I really can't believe that this was actually even collected into an omnibus. It seems like nowadays this is something that would never get an Omni treatment. So I'm glad that 2007 happened, when Marvel was just figuring this out and they were printing stuff that was a little more obscure or older from their back catalog, because some of the stuff now, it seems like, is more focused on collecting a lot of the newer runs, which is cool. I love that. But this is just such a wacky, like, one-off kind of thing that I'm surprised that it even got collected. So, yeah, those are sort of my thoughts on Devil Dinosaur. Not super in-depth, just because honestly there isn't much there to take away from it. It sort of is what it is, and if you like Jack Kirby and big monsters and, and dinosaurs beating up smaller monsters, then this is probably the book for you. But if you're not into that time period of art, or just really economical, focused storytelling, it's probably not going to do it for you exactly. But I would say if you can get it for under $50, $50 or under, that would be an amazing steal, and definitely a cool thing to add to your collection, just because having Kirby in your collection is awesome in my opinion. But if you're on the fence, just know exactly what you're getting into, because it is not for everyone. So recommended, yes, but recommended with reservations, because it's not going to do it for you if you're not totally into Kirby. And I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to another video. This one was, I'm not sure, I just recorded the whole thing in one take basically, and just said everything that I'd been thinking while I was reading it, so hopefully it comes out as pretty coherent and interesting. If you would like to follow me on the social medias, I have a Facebook page, as well as a Twitter and a Tumblr and all that stuff, which will be down below in the description. I am just about to record a new episode of the podcast that I host with Amani, aka NerdHow, which is Get a Cat, Get a Horse. So if you would like to check that out, today we're going to be talking about superhero morality, and Jack Kirby will be a part of that. So links to that will be in the description as well. Please give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down and some comments on this video, depending on how you feel, and any suggestions on what else you'd like to see covered, I always appreciate. So I hope you enjoyed my Devil Dinosaur overview, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay nerdy.